Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm taking a look at Eco Coral Reef by Isaac Nevo, published by Unique Board Games, who donated this copy to review. In this game, you're ecologists trying to repopulate a coral reef and trying to grow coral. It's a tile matching game, very colorful game, very fun game. And before I explain the rules and give you my thoughts, I'd like to point you all towards my Patreon page. I've put a link in the description below, because if you'd like to support what I do, you can do so for just $1 a month or more, and that will get you access to some Patreon exclusive videos on my Patreon page and your name in the credits of all of my YouTube videos. Now let me start by explaining how to play the game, setting up the game, and at the end I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, Eco Coral Reef. Let's take a look at the box first. It's a very small, compact little box with some nice artwork on the cover. Basically just one picture with the title. And it's got coral reef on the side, even a vertical bit for vertical storage. So that's clever. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, plays in about 30 to 60 minutes, ages 14 and up. And on the back it has a little bit of the graphic of what you're doing with the steps explained. There's even a QR code to probably check the rules. So yeah, there's the author. Let's open that up and take a look at the components first. All right, so inside the box is, of course, the rules booklet, which has an overview, object of the game, the components listed there, and the picture tiles, mission tiles, the setup, game map, how you put down your tiles, turtles and gems. We've got the gameplay, which is basically one page, and then mission scoring. So the rules should be simple enough to learn. Color of the corral there explained, how you can score points, even an example of a turn, game end, and some ecological inspiration. The meaning of these terms, in case you do not know or have younger players. Here's a scoring summary again, and some other games by the creator. All right, so here's a little card in here, some promo cards. We have this turtle tile here, marker. We have all of these punch boards, which are made of a nicely thick cardboard with this water print on the back, and all of these tiles, of course, very colorful on the front. So we have different ones with different animals and different colors of corral. Yep, here's Dory, there's Nemo. We have some different tiles there, the yellow ones. All right, that's that. So plenty of those. All right, we have these little crystals, 2 of each color. We have the 4 turtle meeples, 1 for each player. They have a little print on them as well, a little turtle shell. So 4 of those, and we have a small board here that opens sideways for scoring. There you go. So nicely illustrated. So we have that. And we have a Ziploc baggie. 2 Ziploc baggies to put your tiles in, I guess, but it is a kind of a flat box, so yeah, the Ziploc bags, well, they're gonna be full, so they probably just fit in like that with some tiles in them. So it does probably require a little bit of arranging before you can close the box again, but it is nice and compact, so that's something. All right, let me just start with the rules and play it a couple of times, and then I'll be back explaining the rules. To set up a game of Eco Coral Reef, take all the blue tiles, these are the picture tiles, and they have sea creatures and coral on them, and find one tile that has a solitary creature on it. And these are all different creatures. You just need to find one that has a single creature on it, and take that and set it apart in the middle of the table, and that will be your starting tile. The other tiles are shuffled, and you can divide them into roughly 3 equally tall stacks, and then you flip over one tile of each stack. And then you take all the yellow tiles, and these are your mission tiles, and they will have some kind of a shape of tiles on them, plus a number of sea creatures, and you shuffle those tiles, make 2 stacks, and flip over the first 2 tiles. Then randomly deal each player 2 of these picture tiles, so you can just take 2 from a stack and give them to each player. So if we're playing a 3-player game, we could do it like this. And then those players take those tiles and place them open in front of themselves on the table so that everybody can see what they have. Set the scoreboard ready somewhere to the side, and then each player selects a color and places their little turtle marker on the starting spot over here. So if we're playing a 3-player game, for example, we place these. You can return the rest to the box. And on the board you will see at the 10 and the 20 that there is a bunch of crystals there, and you take the crystals in the player colors and place one of each on spot 10 and one of each on spot 20. Decide which player goes first and give that player the starting player token. And now you're ready to play. Let's explain the rules. Eco Coral Reef is a game for 2 to 4 players, and I've set up a 3-player game right here. And on their turn, starting with the starting player, players take turns in clockwise order, and a player can take 3 actions, and they can spend those actions on 2 things. They can either take a tile from the display, either a picture tile or a mission tile, or they can take a tile from one of the stacks blindly. And the second thing they can do is to place a tile from what they have in front of them next to any of the tiles that have been played on the table. You can only have a maximum of 5 reef tiles or mission tiles in front of you at any time. If you draw more than that, you need to discard one. And you can spend those 3 actions any way you want to, in any order you want to. So I could get 3 picture tiles and that would be it, or I could get 1 mission tile, 1 picture tile and play a picture tile, or I could play 3 picture tiles. Doesn't matter, but you have 3 actions, except the first player on the very first starting turn. That player has 4 actions, and then after that everybody just has 3. If at the beginning of a player's turn all of the picture tiles in the display are of the same type, like here, then they are permitted to once in a turn return 1 tile to the middle of a deck and 1 tile to the bottom of the deck, and flip over to new ones. Now the goal of the game is of course to try and score as many points as you can in order to win. And you can do that in 2 ways. You can score points by fulfilling mission tiles. So if you have a mission tile and you do what it says, you get points. And you can also score points by matching corals on the map. And before I explain how scoring works, I'll explain how you can put down tiles on the map. So you can always place any tile anywhere on the map as long as at least one side is adjacent to another tile. So I can do this or I can do that. I cannot place a tile like this only touching the corners. I can also rotate my tile anywhere I want. So I can do this to match up these corals, for example, and I can place it here, for example. But once a tile is placed, no more changes can be made, and you can also not cover any existing tiles. Now the first way of scoring points is by matching coral. So if I, for example, take this tile from my personal collection and I place it over here, and you can see I would match this color, that color, but not that color. Now you get 1 point for every matching coral. So in this case, if I place it here, I would get a point for matching this coral. I would get a point for matching this coral, and I don't get 2 points for matching it on both sides, but because this is considered to be one coral, and I've matched the color that's already on the table, so I get 1 point for that, and I get no points for this. So that would be 2 points that I can immediately place on the scoring track. So I just move my turtle 2 points ahead. If, however, I manage to complete a full coral of the same color by placing it here, for example, then I would score no points for that one. I would score 1 point for that. I would score 1 point for matching it, plus 3 extra points for completing a coral in one color. So that would be 1, 2, and 3 is 5 points. And as you can see on these tiles, there are 6 types of coral. There's yellow, green, pink, and blue. Next to that, there's also the wild, which is basically this multicolored coral that you see here. That's basically the joker, as it is called, and it can be used for any color. And there's the white grayish coral here, that is dead coral, and that does not give you any points. The only way to score points with dead coral is, for example, by matching white with white. So I would get a point for matching white with white here, and otherwise that doesn't get you any points, even if you complete a full white coral. Matching dead coral with a joker also does not get you any points. The second way to score points is with these mission tiles, and there are 5 different kind of shapes of these mission tiles. So we have this one, which has 2 tiles and 2 tiles touching each other in the corner in a kind of like a corner shape. There's a tile that has 4 tiles in a row, and that can be horizontal or vertical. There's these 4 tiles that are in a kind of like a zigzag pattern. There's 4 tiles in a diagonal pattern, and there's 4 tiles in like a cross like this. And they can have different numbers of fish printed on them as well. So you can have 2 fish, you can have 5 fish, 3 or 4. And there are also 3 ways with which you can score points with those tiles. So let me give a demonstration. If, for example, I had this tile right here, which has 4 tiles in a row and 3 fish. And if I complete that as is printed on this tile, that is called colonization. So I'll have 4 tiles in a row with fish of the same number, the same type. So as you can see, there's already one here with 3 fish. So all I need to do is complete a set of 4, either horizontally or vertically. So if I managed to play or attach the final tile to an already existing line of these tiles, so I don't need to have placed them all. Other players could have done that. So for example, if this was already on the table and I have this tile, this mission tile, in front of me on the table that is required to be able to score it, and I would place this reef tile, this picture tile, at the end of that row on my turn, then I would score my mission tile, because now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles in a row, all of them with these 3 fish. And you don't have to worry about the types of fish. The number of fish is always the same type of fish. So the 3 fish will always look like this, and the 5 fish will always look like this, etc. Except the solitary fish or other sea creatures, they are always different, but they count as one animal, but they are kind of like a wild, and they can be replaced for any number of fish, but more on that in a bit. So that's the first way to score, called colonization, and that will get me 7 points. The second way of doing that is called coexistence. So for example, if I had these tiles and I still had this same mission tile, so let's put this one to the side for a while, I still need to make a row, but instead of having 3 fish on all of them, I would need to get different numbers of fish on each tile. Now there's already one here that has 4 fish. This one has 3 fish. So what I could do, if I had, for example, a 5 and a 2 as well, I could just connect those. So I could place this one here, score a point for this coral, no points here, and then later perhaps, or if somebody else placed that, then I could place this one here. This one has 2 wilds, so I would score a point here and a point here. And now I would also have this row of 4 tiles with 5, 2, 3, and 4. So they all have a different number of fish, and that means I complete the coexistence of this mission tile, and that gets me 7 points as well. And the final way of scoring points with a mission tile is called migration. And in that case, I don't disregard the number, but I disregard the shape, but I keep this number. So if I had a tile like this one, for example, that I had before, this has a L shape, but I'm going to disregard that, but I'm going to look at the number of fish, and in this case it's 4. And I look at the map, then I see there's 4 fish here, there's 4 fish here, there's also 4 fish here. Now if I can manage to make either a rectangle or a square out of tiles with that number of fish without them touching each other, so they can't be directly next to each other, I also score points. So in that case, I could spend an action on my turn in getting this tile from the display, which also has 4 fish, taking that into my own stash here, and then spending a second action to place this one over here like this, which would be very beneficial because I have 1, 2, 3 matching corals. That's 3 points. And now I have 4 fish here, 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 and here in a square without directly touching each other. There's at least 1 tile in between, and that means I've completed the migration option for this mission tile, and I also score 7 points. Now, as I said earlier, if you use a solitary fish, that is a wild. So I could use, instead of this one, if I didn't have that one, if that was not available here, but some other creature was available in the display or in my personal stash, and I didn't have the 4 fish available, I could get one of those and place it there. And again, I score 1 point for the blue coral, 1 for the green, none here. So that's 2 points. And I do this. Then I also have 4, 4, 4 and a wild. But every wild subtracts 3 points from your total score. So that would mean I'd score 4 points instead of 7. And if I used a second one for that configuration, I'd only score 1 point. Now, sometimes by placing a picture tile in the map, you could complete more than 1 mission tile. So that's possible. But you cannot score multiple mission tiles with the same layout in the same action. Every time I complete a mission tile, I will place it upside down just next to the board, and that goes for the colonization and the migration options. So that means having exactly what the tile says in the pattern and the numbers, or having the 4 corners in a rectangle or a square. But for the coexistence missions, you need to leave it face up. So for example, if I had this situation here, maybe I put it like this, then I would have this shape, these 2 tiles and these 2 tiles with different numbers of fish. I'd have 4 here, 2 here, 3 here, and 5 here. So that would score me 7 points, plus any coral matching that I did. And I would leave this with this side up next to my stash. Don't confuse them with the tiles that you already have that you still need to complete. So put them aside, but keep in mind that this particular shape has been completed with the coexistence, so with different numbers on each tile. And that is because a coexistence can only be performed once per game per layout for all players. And like I showed you before, there are 5 possible layouts like these here. So each one of these layouts can only be performed with a coexistence once. So let's play an example round. So starting with the starting player over here, they have 4 actions on the very first turn, and after that everybody has 3 actions. So let's take a look at the options here. So I could play a picture tile. I could get a picture tile from the display here or from the stacks, or I could get a mission tile here or from the stacks as well. So let's see. Maybe we want to get one of these. So I have a couple of different numbers of fish there. And maybe I want to get one of these as well. Let's get a mission tile. And maybe I want to play a tile. So let's check if I have any matching corals here. This one has matching corals, so I could place it here or perhaps here. So let's put it there. That means I score 2 points for matching here and here. So then I check my color. So let's say I'm red, and I could move my turtle 2 spaces ahead on the track there. Now I don't refill the empty spots during my turn. Only when I end my turn, I refill them. Now as I'm the first player, I still have 1 action to go. So maybe I want to play another tile. So let's check. I'm gonna play this over here as well. I score 1 point, move my turtle ahead 1 step. And then I've taken my 4 actions. Then I refill the display. And there's always 2 mission cards and 3 picture cards. So making 3 stacks and 2 stacks of those respective tiles is a good idea to keep track of that. Now is the second player's turn, and the second player sees 2 tiles that have 3 fish and a couple of mission tiles that have 3 fish. So maybe they want to just grab one of those and these 2 tiles. That's 3 actions taken. Then their turn is over. We refill the display again, and then the next player's turn starts. That player perhaps wants to take one of these mission cards blindly, and maybe they want a wild card token, and they want to play 1 tile here, 1 picture tile, because they can match 2 colors, giving them 2 points. So then we're back to the first player. The display gets refreshed, and I see 3 tiles next to each other with 5, 1, and 2. So they're all different. And I have this mission that has the 4 tiles in a straight row. So I could possibly place this tile here, score 1 point for the matching coral, and then I'd say, okay, I'm getting this mission tile done, because there's 4 tiles in a row, but they all have different number of creatures. So that would mean I score 7 points minus 3 for the solitary creature here is 4 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus I keep this one face up because now nobody can make this pattern with the different numbers of creatures for the remainder of the game. Now during setup, you saw that we had some crystals on the scoreboard here at the 10 and the 20 points spot. So whenever you pass that with your turtle, or you end up on that square, you can take the crystal of your color and just add it to your stash there. And if you still have those crystals at the end of the game, they are worth 1 point each. Now at any time during my own turn, I can discard one of my crystals here, just put it back in the box, to add either 2 picture tiles or 2 mission tiles to the display. So for example, if I chose to add 2 more of these, I'd have more options to choose from. And then whenever somebody takes one of those, it's just removed. And then the next player takes it, is removed, and they are not refilled until, of course, another one is removed and there's less than 2 in the display. Then you fill back up to 2 again. And the same goes for the picture tiles. If I spend my crystal to add 2 more picture tiles, then any of those tiles could be chosen by players, and it only gets refilled until there's less than 3. Using your gem is a free action and can only be used on your turn at any time, and you can also spend both of them in your same turn. The game ends whenever a certain number of points are scored by one of the players. There are flags on the track here, as you can see. At the 34 spot, there's a 4-player flag. At the 37 spot, there's the 3-player flag. And at the 40 spot, there's the 2-player flag. So depending on the number of players, as soon as one of those players, so in this case we're playing a 3-player game, ends on this or passes that spot, then you finish the round. So if the first player was the person who passed this marker, then the second and third player also take their turns. If it was the third player that crosses that marker, then the game ends. You check whether you have any crystals left, and you add 1 point per crystal that you still possess to your final score. And next you subtract 2 points per mission tile that you still have in your possession that was not completed. So you subtract 2 for each of those. And of course, the player with the most points wins the game. And those are all the rules for Eco Coral Reef. Let's go to my final thoughts. All right, my final thoughts on Eco Coral Reef by Unique Board Games. Let's start with the components. So all of these tiles are of a decent, normal, thick cardboard quality. So that's good. They have a nice printed side on it. It's a bit glossy. Looks really nice, and they're big enough, I would say. They're not very big. I mean, there's a lot of information on a little tile, but it's big enough to see what's going on. You can easily count the number of fish and see the colors of the corals, which is what it's basically all about. So the tiles are just fine. Goes for all the types of tiles, of course. You get these lovely little crystals that we see in many games, so that's pretty standard plastic crystals, but they're nice to have. And I do like the little turtle meeples, the wooden turtles that you use for your score tracking. And the score tracking board itself is also fine. I do find that it does come up just a little bit. It doesn't stay flat because it's just small, and it has just one tight crease in the middle. So you can fold it double so that it fits in the small box. But when you fold it out, it kind of wants to lift off the table a little bit. So they could have done that crease a little bit better so that it stays flat, but that is really my only gripe. It's just a tiny little inconvenience, really. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot to it. It's just the components are good. The artwork is pretty nice. I do like all the fish. It's a bit busy, but it is very colorful. I do kind of like that the wild card animals, so the single animals, are all different. You have stingrays, you have octopuses, you have sea turtles, all kinds of animals, creatures that live in the sea. So that's pretty cool. Also the other tiles with the 2, 3, 4, or 5 fish on them, they do have the same illustration. So the 5 fish will always be the same 5 fish, for example, but they're nice and colorful. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat looking. So the art is pretty well done, I would say. I've nothing to comment on that, really. So that gets a thumbs up. The theme, you're exploring a coral reef. You're trying to get the fish to populate the reef and get the coral to grow. And I guess that's nice. It doesn't really mean a whole lot to the gameplay. This could have literally been anything. It could have been an abstract with just circles with colors, and the fish could be symbols or colors, whatever, or even numbers just on the tiles. But it does give it a little bit of extra dimension, I guess. It looks nice, and it's an attractive looking game, and it's just like any other tile laying game. It's a bit like Carcassonne. You're just putting tiles down, and whether you're a farmer or a bandit, or in this case a group of fish, doesn't really matter. But it looks nice. So let's talk about the gameplay then. I do like tile laying games. I like color matching games, and this has all of that. You're trying to get your mission tokens, and you're trying to score points with that. So you're trying to make these figures that are printed on these mission tokens. You can have 5 different ones. There's the straight line, there's the diagonal line, there's the corner, there's the zigzag pattern, and there's like the cross where you have 4 tiles surrounding a central tile. And then you combine that with a number of fish or sea creatures that you need to have on that formation of tiles. So you can have either 2, 3, 4, or 5. Or, like the rules state, you can also have a series of animals that are all different in number. So you could have 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course you can have the solitary animals substituting any of those numbers, but that will subtract 3 points. So the rules are pretty elegant and pretty clear, and I do enjoy that. And you're just always looking for colors of the coral to match. And, you know, you're deciding how to orient your next tile and where to put it. And there's a little bit of a take that element as well, because as you're collecting new tiles, you might see a tile that you want, but somebody else grabs it before you do, before you have a chance to. Especially when you're playing 3 or 4 players, the competition gets a bit more tense than when you're playing just 2 players. So I do kind of like it with more players, but it's just as fun with 2 players as well. And then you're trying to get those numbers of fish to match up with your mission tiles. And that is also something that can go wrong, because everybody can see your mission tiles and your picture tiles. So that means when you're aiming to get a certain figure, then somebody else can thwart that plan by putting a tile in a place with a different number of fish on it than you wanted there, or even just score that same thing that you wanted to score before you could. And there are all kinds of different combinations on these tiles. So yeah, that's pretty cool. There's one rule that I was a bit unsure about, and that is the rule that when you make a formation as is pictured on the card, you make that figure and you do the different numbers of fish on it instead of the number that's on your tile. So for example, the 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers of fish, then you can only do that once, and that goes for everybody. So you leave that scored tile face up on the table for all to see, so that they know, look, this formation, that figure, and it's 1 of 5, has already been done with the 4 different numbers of animals. That made it a little bit more competitive and a bit more complex, because you're looking for all these symbols and numbers and colors, and you're trying to find something that will match your tiles, or the ones that you can still take, and you're trying to grab those before somebody else can. And it's especially difficult to make those figures with just a fixed number of sea creatures. So if you have the 2 here, for example, 2 creatures, and you need them in a straight line, then you're really, you know, getting that is pretty hard, because it can easily get, you know, your plans can get easily disrupted by other players. So I kind of added a little house rule to that, so that you can play it with the rules as is for the expert player, and then the game takes a bit longer because you don't score as quickly as you would when you can just go ahead and use that several times. So the house rule would be, okay, that rule only goes for the player. So that player can make 5 different formations with the different numbers of cards. And after that, they have to stick to the number of creatures that are on your tile. So it doesn't go for all players. That might be a house rule, or just forego that rule entirely and just see however you can score. That does mean that you can score a lot faster, because once you see patterns with like 1, 3, 4, 5 creatures, you can get a lot more of those patterns in more quickly, and you will score quicker as well. So the game doesn't last as long, which I would suggest is a good idea if you're playing with children, you know, younger players. The game is 14 plus, which would be correct if you played it strictly by the rules. But if you house rule it like I did, you can easily play it with an 8, 9-year-old, because we played it with our son without that rule, and that went perfectly well. So that's just a little house rule. It's not strictly in the rules, of course, but I did enjoy it a little bit more. That way it was less competitive and it didn't overstay its welcome. The game didn't take too long, because we also need to take the attention span of our son into account when playing games like this. But with an adult audience, you can just play as is with the rules, or decide if that rule only goes per player and not for all players, should you want to. But all in all, I did enjoy the gameplay. I think it's a solid game. It's a good tile laying game, and should definitely deserve your attention if you enjoy that type of games as well. The replayability is pretty high, because your coral reef will look differently every time you're placing tiles, so that will look differently. You're always looking for patterns, and you shuffle the tiles, of course, so that's going to be different. So it's just like Carcassonne or any other game like that. So replayability, in my opinion, is pretty good. It is also completely language independent, because there is no text on any of these tiles. There's just pictures of fish and corals, and you have your scoreboard, and that's basically it. So you just need to read the rules and then translate them to your friends if needed, and that's it. And it's simple as that. So also a thumbs up for that. So in the end, yes, it's a pretty good game. It's a nice game. I would recommend checking it out if you do like pattern recognition, color matching, tile laying games with a little bit of take that and competition, just like in Carcassonne, really, with a fun theme. So go and check it out. That's Eco Coral Reef by Unique Board Games. I'll put a link in the description below. And that's it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And please check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below, or the icon at the end of this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.